I love this movie. If I had to pick one Mission Impossible movie to watch for the rest of my life, it would be this one. How's it going, guys? Welcome back to Fibs Reacts. In today's video, we are going to be ranking the Mission Impossible movies. So at the time of recording this video, I have not seen Final Reckoning yet. I do plan to see it very soon, but I have, of course, seen all of the other Mission Impossible movies, and I would just like to say right off the bat, this list isn't necessarily like what I would call like a worst to best. I would kind of say like a least favorite to most favorite, just because I'm a really big fan of this franchise, and I think for the most part, a lot of these movies are very strong. All right, so we will be going from least favorite to most favorite. Starting out at number 7 is Mission Impossible 2. Now this has kind of been has kind of notoriously become what most would consider the worst out of the franchise, and I would definitely have to agree. I actually watched this movie for the first time not too long ago. I had yet to see the second one, and it is definitely a very different take, a very different style than the rest of the movies in the franchise. It definitely has a different tone to it. I do think this came out like the year after The Matrix came out, which definitely makes a lot of sense because you do oftentimes see Tom Cruise in like a black trench coat kind of thing and sunglasses, and a lot of the action, for the most part, kind of mimics The Matrix. This was also directed by John Woo, who was known for doing a lot of kind of action kung fu type movies, which apparently was the style that Tom Cruise wanted for this film in particular. So I don't necessarily, blame John Woo. Like, I don't think, he did a bad job or anything. He did exactly what he does. I just don't think it worked for Mission Impossible as a movie, as a franchise. There are, some parts in this movie that, kind of go over the top. It does, kind of get a bit comedic at times, a bit animated almost. Also, this is probably Tom Cruise's worst hair, I would say. It's just way too long. It's way too floppy. One thing I will say that is great about this movie is, of course, the opening, which is, where Tom Cruise is rock climbing, which is, just the most bizarre thing. Of course, until he decides to, climb the tallest building in the world, which we will get to later. But just that, shot that kind of pans in, and all you see is just a mountain range. But then if you look really closely, it's like, oh wow, he is on the side of the mountain. And of course, Tom Cruise does his own stunts, so he actually did climb that mountain, and he did that jump, and he's insane in the best way possible. All right, next up at number 6, we have Mission Impossible 1. The one that started it all, the one that, started everything off, started off, Tom Cruise on this wild ride of Mission Impossible. Of course, this was, following the TV show, Mission Impossible, that all of these movies are, of course, based on. I do think this movie is good for the most part. There are some good action sequences in it. However, I do feel like, the scene with the train at the end it's not that exciting in my opinion. However, of course, this was Tom Cruise's first leap into kind of these daredevil type stunts. But for the most part, you know, Mission Impossible 1 is, you know, kind of a good kickoff to the rest of the movies in the franchise. All right, at number 5, we have Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Now, again, this is very low on the list, but I do think it is a great film. I do think Haley Atwell was a great addition to the Mission Impossible movies. I think one of my favorite sequences in this movie is, of course, when Tom Cruise, Ethan Hunt, and Haley Atwell's character are handcuffed together and they have to drive a car. I think that was, you know, made for some pretty comedic moments. And, you know, of course, we have another sequence involving a train at the end, which is, you know, very, very well done. Again, you know, not really a lot of negative things to say about this movie. I just think a lot of the ones to come are better, in my opinion. But still, Dead Reckoning, you know, had some great additions as far as the cast goes, and also some great moments in the movie itself. All right, number 4, we have Mission Impossible Fallout. This is where it gets good. This is where we, of course, have Henry Cavill coming in with the mustache that started it all. Yeah, I mean, this movie, it's a wild ride, man. You know, you got the Halo jump, which is just crazy. I mean, it looks like a lot of fun. I mean, Halo jumping is, you know, it's even higher than you know, like skydiving. It's something, you know, of course, commonly used in like the special forces and things like that. But I think the highlight for me about Fallout, you know, despite the fact that it has many great moments, including, you know, Tom Cruise flying a helicopter through, you know, canyons basically, which is very dangerous, but of course he's Tom Cruise, so he can do anything. The standout moment for me is, of course, the bathroom fight, which of course has become, you know, pretty iconic. You know, you have Henry Cavill charging up his punches, which is great. And yeah, I mean, I just love like action sequences where, you know, there's not really like, you know, guns involved, no weapons at all. It's just like pure brawling, and these guys are just, you know, just throwing each other into mirrors and just, you know, just completely beating the crap out of each other. It's just a really great sequence, and yeah, Mission Impossible Fallout is definitely one of the good ones. All right, and we are now down to our top 3. The one I have at the number 3 spot is, ironically, the third film in the franchise, Mission Impossible 3. Now, I do have a lot of good things to say about this movie. I think one in particular would be Philip Seymour Hoffman portraying the villain, rest in peace. I think he does an amazing job. He gives a really just chilling performance. There's, you know, I think the villain roles that really stand out to me, the villains who just don't show a lot of emotion, they don't seem very fazed by what they do. And I think Philip Seymour Hoffman, he just portrays the character in just a very, just kind of stoic, just like, you know, I'm just gonna do what I do, and, you know, whatever happens, happens kind of thing. Truly, you know, terrifying performance. But also the opening of this movie is very militaristic, if that's a word. It is very much like the start of a war film. You know, it's this kind of nighttime reconnaissance scene, and you know, they're carrying like assault weapons and everything. And it's very, you know, kind of special forces type thing, as opposed to like the more, I guess, secret agent kind of stuff. But yeah, everything in this film, you know, involving you know, Ethan Hunt and his wife is just really you know, heart-wrenching stuff, and you know, really gets down to very critical moments between the two characters. The villain really knows how to kind of get into Ethan's head and really mess with him, which is very interesting. So yeah, Mission Impossible 3 is definitely you know, I think one that is commonly overlooked, and definitely would be one that I would give a rewatch if you haven't in a while. It's really fantastic. All right, and at our number 2 spot we have Rogue Nation. Now this movie, I mean, they just really kick it up, and it's so action packed, and I mean this movie just does not stop once it starts. Obviously, the addition to the franchise in this film is Rebecca Ferguson, which Rebecca Ferguson, man. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's just like, you know, the car chase, I think, is something that really stands out to me. Just a truly fascinating car chase. Obviously, we get to see Tom Cruise on a motorbike, on a sports bike, which never gets old. And obviously the scene at the opera, I think, is very well done. And I love how there's like a sniper rifle that's disguised as like a trumpet, or not a trumpet, but some kind of musical instrument. And I think that was, you know, pretty clever. And obviously, you know, the sequence where Ethan Hunt has to jump down into the large water reservoir thing. I know I'm butchering all of this, but where he has to hold his breath for a really long time. And I just think that sequence is just like, you almost feel like you're also holding your breath at the same time he is, just because it's just so, it's so tense. But yeah, I mean, this movie is great. Rebecca Ferguson, again, great addition to the franchise. And I think it was a really good precursor to Dead Reckoning for sure. And finally, at our number 1 spot, my favorite Mission Impossible movie out of the entire franchise, having not seen Final Reckoning, is Ghost Protocol. I love this movie. If I had to pick one Mission Impossible movie to watch for the rest of my life, it would be this one. I actually just rewatched this one fairly recently, but I just think, you know, the cast is very strong in this movie. Bringing in Jeremy Renner, I think, was great. I think he's fantastic in this movie. The opening scene with the prison break, I think, is great. I love interactions between Benji and Ethan Hunt. I always think it's very funny. Also, the scene where they infiltrate the Kremlin is also very fun. I love that giant projector that they use in that scene. And of course, the sequence where like Benji's not paying attention and like you see his entire face on the projector, I think is really funny. But obviously, you know, I what I would say is like the grand master of all of Tom Cruise's stunts. Probably aside from this current one where he's hanging off the side of a plane. Something that I would be just absolutely terrified to do. This would probably be like the last stunt of Tom Cruise that I would ever try to attempt. Is of course scaling the tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa. I think this scene is so well done, and I love the build up to that scene, because, you know, initially Ethan Hunt doesn't know that he's gonna have to go outside of the building. They think they're just gonna stay inside, but it's not until they basically get there and get settled in the room that Benji's like, oh, by the way, you got to do it from the outside. And I love how in that scene Ethan Hunt just immediately starts listing like any other possible way that he could do it. You know, he's like, can we try the air vent? Can we try this? Can we try that? And like Benji's like, no. And he's like, Okay, so the only way he can do it is by you know, scaling the outside of the building. But that first shot where the music cuts out, you can't hear anything except basically the gusts of wind, the whistle of the wind, and you're almost the camera kind of pans over Ethan Hunt's shoulder, Tom Cruise's shoulder, and you just look down. And in that sequence, and I'm not the biggest fan of heights. I'm not crazy about heights. In that moment, like your heart just like sinks to your stomach, and it's truly surreal how they made you feel that. Like I felt it just on my TV screen. But apparently in watching some of the behind the scenes on how they shot that particular portion of the movie, apparently Tom Cruise was like having a blast. All the rest of the crew and the safety guys were, you know, very serious and all locked in, and Tom Cruise is just like on a harness, just like, you know, running around the building, just like having the most fun. And the part where he's already lost one of his gloves that he's using, and he's almost wedged in between the windows, and he's using his laser gun to cut a hole in the window. And when it like backfires and like knocks him off the build, I mean, like the first time I saw that, I was just like, oh my god, you know. And this movie just comes down to the wire, to the last second to complete the mission. You know, he's just down to the last seconds, and all of his team are, you know, at the same time working to do what they need to do so that he can do what he needs to do. It all works so well. And of course they complete the mission and, you know, stop a nuclear missile. But yeah, Ghost Protocol is just, I could go on and on about all the things I like about it, but yeah, it's a great movie for sure, and definitely my favorite Mission Impossible movie. So there you have it, guys. That is my ranking of the Mission Impossible movies. Obviously, you know, again, having not seen Final Reckoning yet, but I am very anxious to see that. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for the support. Please be sure to give the video a like, and I will plan to see you guys next time. Catch you later.